I am making an applique kit for my granddaughters for Christmas. I happen to have 3 10-year-old granddaughters. So what I've done is I've cut strips of fabric that are over 17 inches wide because my heat bond fabric is 17 inches wide. I'm using the Ultra Heat Bond, sold at most craft stores. You can even get it at Walmart. And I have pre-cut fabrics for this purpose. You can see, if I roll this up, I've already done several different fabrics for this project. When I am done with it, my plan is to measure over 5.75 inches from the edge. On the back side of the paper, I'm going to make a line and another 5.75 and make another line. And I'm going to be cutting each single piece that now measures over 17 wide by basically 10 1/4 tall. And those pieces will be cut down to 5.75 by 10 1/4 when I'm done. I am ready now to start the next piece. What I do is roll the next piece down, and this edge is already, it's loose because you cannot iron close enough to the edge to secure it completely down without getting the heat bond material on your iron. Let's see if I can show you the surface of this heat bond material. That's the sticky side of the heat bond. The other side is paper. The other side of this is paper that I'm touching. So now I have my next piece cut. I'm going to place it on my project, and to help me get the seam across here tight, I take a little pin and I place it on each side. Now I'm on vacation doing this project and I'm in my motor home, so I don't have all the resources of my sewing room, but I wanted to capture this as I'm doing it because I think it's a really cool project. So I'm going to put another pin here, but I have to put the camera down. So what you're going to do after you've gotten your fabric placed, you're just going to go over it with the iron, and that gap there is not too big that the sticky stuff will get on the face of your iron. Again, I would want to keep that seam there between the fabrics to about 1/8 of an inch. You don't want it to be as big as a quarter of an inch because it could get on the face of your iron. And I am ironing over this with a medium hot iron, medium high basically. Ironing on the surface of the fabrics isn't going to be enough to completely adhere it, no matter how long I iron it. It really needs to be ironed from the back side, but what I'm doing here is tacking the fabric onto the adhesive of the heat bond, and then when I'm done, I'll be turning it over and ironing it from the back to completely secure it properly. Take my pins out, pull it forward a little bit, and I'm just going to iron up to the edge to help secure this a little more for the next piece. I don't want to touch the sticky part of the heat bond. Once that's pretty well secured close to the edge, then I will begin placing the other piece of fabric. Although most of the prints I've used have been smaller prints that you can use creatively to put shapes on and cut out appliques. This is a cute example of how you can use a patterned fabric with large patterns, and these duckies could be cut out in groups or singly in order to make appliques out of them. Now on this sample you'll see I've got a pin here. The fabric just didn't want to stay straight properly, so I do that where I have problems getting the fabric to stay pretty straight. I'm going to tack this one down. Now, when you're doing your applique kits, you always want to include a complement of solid fabrics, and the reason for that is you want to have some solids that you could use. Let's say you have a ballerina with a tutu. You could use a designed print for the upper body and the lower body, and you could use a solid print for and cut out the tutu separately. So now I've turned these over and I'm ironing the paper side of all of the strips that I just prepared. As you're rolling it forward, you may find that fabric separates and turns back as you pull it across the ironing board. Make sure you straighten it up before you press it down. So, all I'm doing, the heat bond instructions say 2 seconds. So, I just go over it like, kind of like this. I'm trying to make sure I get my 2 seconds under each area. Medium-high heat. And then when I actually pull it forward, you can kind of see the places where the adhesive is heated up. So when you pull it forward, you'll see a little bit of a demarcation between this area and this area. And so I pull it forward with that in mind. So I'm going to try to watch where I was on the fabric, make sure that I don't pull it too far because I want to overlap and not have any unadhered areas. Okay, now I have all of my fabric roll. This was a 5-yard roll of heat bond, ultra hold, I believe it's called. Yeah, heat bond ultra hold. So I've ironed it from the back side now, and I need to trim off the excess fabric. So I'm going to go down and trim from both sides. I put my little portable ironing board up here to act as a platform. It allows me to trim these as I roll it off. Okay, so I have finished ironing my applique project from the paper side of the project, and I have drawn my lines down the length of the roll. And if you look, I have a mark on my ruler in 2 places, and what I basically did was just go down the roll, put a little tick mark, couple of tick marks, go on further down, put a couple of tick marks, and then draw my line. So as I progressed down the roll, I just had to make an additional set of tick marks as I went. So now I am cutting them apart, not this way, but I'm going to turn the roll over, and I'm going to cut them this way first, and then I'll cut the lines that I've made, I'll cut them second. And that'll give me 3 sets for my 3 lovely granddaughters. So anyway, I cut down here. I usually cut close to this side, trim it nice, and then I turn it the opposite way and cut close to that side because I'm right-handed. So I do try to trim off the exposed edges for the kids before I put them in their kits. So now I'm going to cut across these pieces I've disassembled. I'm going to cut across these marks on the back to make my individual panels. Now, as I'm finishing up my project, I noticed while I was cutting these pieces apart, they were like, you know, they were originally like that, and I had drawn my lines. I had drawn my lines and cut these apart. They're all the same, this one. But then as you're processing them for cutting them apart, pay attention because you may see some streaks like this. That's just a place where somehow I did not iron that down well enough to adhere the fabric completely to the heat bond. So when you see that, I usually turn them sideways for ones, instead of stacking them like that. I turn them crossways so that I know which ones I need to actually press again with the iron. So I'm going to take the iron and just run it across this area. And those kind of marks should disappear. That way I know that that piece is completely prepped for making an applique. So this is my kit. I have my appliques that I've made. I'll show you more about that in a second. I have the shapes that will be used for making appliques. You could also use cookie cutters or any other patterns that you can find that you find you'd like to replicate. You can use coloring books. There's just a whole slew of ideas for where you can get shapes from. I've got some extra fabric here. I have 2 purses that I have made for them to decorate. The purses are exactly the same. These are a little bit nicer than you could buy. These were made with duck cloth, and they're a little bit nicer than the canvas tote bags you can buy pre-made. So I made each girl 2 of these to decorate. I found these at a craft store. This is the backpack version with a drawstring top, and it was $1. It will take an iron. It will not melt under the heat of the iron, but I suggest you pre-test these kinds of things for that, because if they're made of acrylic, they will likely melt. And here's a regular tote bag, again, $1 at a craft store. And the cool thing about these kinds of bags that feel like they're outdoor material almost, because they're very plasticky feeling, is that you can actually put self-adhesive stickers to decorate. So I've given an assortment of those that they can put directly on these, and they should stay for a long time. I also find that for stickers that don't stay, the fact that it has adhesive on the back of it, you can use a really good craft glue in addition to the sticker to force it to stay where it might not otherwise stay on the surface. The fact that there's adhesive on the back of these grabs the glue that you put on the back and helps it to adhere, but always make sure you put some sort of sheet of paper or something underneath so it doesn't glue through to both sides of your fabric when you do that. Again, the idea of the appliques, these are just plain off-white ones and some tan ones, is to take your applique and put it on the back side of the fabric in a corner so you can conserve material as close as possible. Leave a little bit of an edge so that you don't draw off the edge of the fabric, and just trace around your shape, and you can see the potential for all of these things that I've collected here for them. And some things you could do, like a shape like this, you could possibly do the body out of one color and the wings out of another color, and you can get some really interesting looking items by doing that. So that's the basic idea. behind what I've done. I got these bags at a dollar store. Actually, I believe it was Dollar General. And I have another sticky thing in there that I hadn't pulled out. Cool. They fold out at the bottom, so that makes it really nice to make a kit with. Again, $1. Can't beat that. So my my project is, you know, it adds up, but spending $1 for I think these stickers were probably they were probably like $1.50, no more than $2.50 a piece. These, I'm pretty sure these are marked $3, and they were from Hobby Lobby. These are the Sticko brand. I know that Walmart carries Sticko, but so do all other craft carriers carry the Sticko brand, and these are the gel type. You don't want a paper type sticker for something that might be washed, and for these kinds that are puffy stickers, actually these are puffy padded, so they're not hollow on the inside, so that makes it very nice when you can find those. And I also got puffy paints, because the idea around that was that after you have your star shape cut out, then you could take the puffy paint, after you apply it with to your clothing item, apply it with heat, you could take your puffy paint and outline so that you don't have to do a satin stitch. If you wanted to do satin stitches for appliques, you need to use the less intense heat bond. This one that I used for this application, because it's young girls that are beginning this type of craft, is the Ultra Hold, but you wouldn't want the Ultra Hold if you want to sew it, because the needle of the sewing machine has a more difficult time getting sticky material on it as you're sewing. So, and also just going in and out of the very gripping type of plastic that's on the Ultra Bond or the heat bond. Anyway, this can be a really fabulous project for your children, and it's been a labor of love for me. I would say I've probably done 3 major sittings in order to do this quantity of stickies, or not stickies, but I would say I've done 3 major sittings in order to accumulate this much material for each of my granddaughters. I'm going to splay this out so you can get a better idea of what I've used. Okay, here we go. This is the assortment of fabrics that I have prepared for my applique kit for my granddaughters. Now, just so you know, occasionally you will have a fabric that may not take heat very well, and this is one of those examples. To put an iron directly on this silver material would melt it. This is an example of a fabric that you cannot touch directly with the iron. When I first prepared it, I put a pressing cloth over this and tacked it onto the heat bond, and then I turned the heat bond to the back side and pressed it normally. But I have written instructions on here to my granddaughters not to iron on the silver fabric directly, to use a cloth over it, because it will melt. So those kinds of things are important. It's the very last thing in my sample, so when I put it in my clear plastic bag, the instructions are going to stick out like a sore thumb. These are the supplies you will need to complete your project. I have a tabletop folding ironing board, but any ironing board will do. I have an 18-inch clear ruler, a white marker. This one happens to be a gel marker. It's not made to wash out of the fabric. I don't know if it will wash out of the fabric. This one is just, it says here, a jelly roll 08, but I find it's good for marking fabric so that I can cut on the fabric. and I don't care because the white line is on the cut, so I don't care if it disappears. A pen, pencil, anything that will mark on the back side of the heat bond and stay. And a pair of scissors, an iron, and a lint roll to get extra lint off of the samples that you'll be preparing so they look nice and clean. And there's the finished project. I'll be putting it in a bigger bag to conceal what it is, and give it to my granddaughter for Christmas.